Have you ever noticed how some families seem to stay wealthy for generations, while others watch their fortune disappear in just a few years? It isn't luck, it isn't because one group works harder than the other, and it's definitely not because of some secret handshake in a smoky back room. The difference comes down to a set of rules. A playbook for money, a guide that's been refined over centuries, passed quietly within certain communities, and practiced so consistently that the results almost look like magic from the outside. But it isn't magic, it's structure, it's choices, it's discipline repeated across time. The reality is stark. 70% of wealthy families lose their money by the second generation. By the third generation, that number rises to 90%. Think about that. A fortune that takes one lifetime to build can vanish in less than 50 years. So why do some families break the pattern? They don't just think about today's bills. They don't just think about their own lifetime. They think in decades. They think in centuries. And that's where this story begins. Because today we're going to talk about 7 money rules. Rules practiced in Jewish communities for generations that explain how wealth survives wars, depressions, and even persecution. Rules that can work for you no matter your background. These rules aren't complicated. They don't require you to be a Wall Street wizard or a spreadsheet addict. They're practical, they're human, and they just might change how you see money forever. Let's start with the first one, because it's not just powerful, it's the foundation for everything that follows. Rule 1, money isn't taboo. In many homes, money is treated like a dirty secret. Parents whisper about bills, kids pick up on the stress, but no one explains what's actually happening. By the time those kids grow up, they're tossed into adulthood with a paycheck in one hand and zero guidance in the other. That silence becomes expensive. It leads to debt, poor savings habits, and repeating the very same mistakes they watched growing up. Jewish families do something radically different. Money isn't hidden. It isn't shameful. It's a normal part of family conversations, as ordinary as asking about school or dinner. From an early age, kids are included in financial discussions at a level they can understand. They learn that money is not a mysterious force to fear. It's a tool that can build, protect, and even heal. One method often used is deceptively simple, the 5R system. Any money a child receives, whether as allowance, gifts, or small earnings, gets divided. 10% to charity, 20% to investments, 10% to savings, half for essentials, and the last 10% for fun. On the surface, it's just jars and coins. But beneath that, it's teaching something most adults still struggle with, that every dollar has a purpose. That wealth isn't just about accumulation, but about responsibility, growth, and giving. Now imagine what happens when a child grows up with this mindset. By 18, they don't just know how to spend. They know how to invest. They know how to give. They know how to think about money as something alive, something that can multiply if cared for. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to be Jewish and you don't need to be rich to start this. All it takes is the decision to treat money as a conversation, not a secret. If you're a parent, try this with your kids. If you're not, try it yourself. Replace jars with envelopes or digital wallets if you prefer. What matters isn't the amount, but the habit. Over time, this habit shapes identity. You stop being someone who reacts to money and you start becoming someone who directs it. And that shift, the move from fear to purpose, is the first step in building wealth that lasts beyond one lifetime. Rule 2, work is a mission, but smart work, not just hard work. We've all heard the advice, work hard and you'll succeed. It sounds noble, but it's incomplete. Working hard at the wrong thing is like rowing furiously in a boat with a hole in it. You'll move, but you won't get far. Families that build long-term wealth understand this. They don't just push their children to follow passion blindly. They guide them toward fields that combine meaning with opportunity, professions that society always needs, professions that pay above average, and most importantly, professions that scale beyond the limits of a single person's time. That's why you'll often find them in medicine, law, finance, or technology, not because of stereotypes, but because these fields multiply impact. A doctor can see 20 patients in a day, but a doctor who builds a medical practice or develops new treatments can help thousands. A programmer can write one app, but a founder can create platforms that serve millions. And the pattern doesn't stop with careers. Families who thrive long-term rarely depend on a single income stream. Even with high-paying jobs, they build side businesses, investment portfolios, or real estate holdings. It's not about greed, it's about resilience. When a pandemic shuts down jobs, when recessions shrink industries, multiple streams keep the family stable. It's like building a chair with 4 legs instead of one. If one leg snaps, the chair still stands. Ask yourself, does your work only cover your bills, or does it have the potential to create wealth that outlives your paycheck? Could you add another stream even if it starts small? A side hustle, a rental property, dividend-paying stocks, or simply skills that allow you to shift industries if needed. Rule 3, your network is wealth. There's a reason people say your network is your net worth. But in practice, most people spend more time polishing resumes than building relationships. And that's a mistake, because opportunity flows through people, not job boards. In close-knit communities, when someone starts a business, support doesn't just come in the form of congratulations. It comes as customers, mentors, investors, and referrals. Money circulates, knowledge circulates. Doors open that would stay shut if you were knocking alone. Think about this. Most jobs aren't filled through applications. They're filled through connections. Investors are more likely to fund someone introduced by a trusted contact than a stranger. The key is to build relationships before you need them, not by collecting business cards or spamming LinkedIn requests, but by creating genuine value. Ask, how can I help this person? Share knowledge. Introduce them to someone useful. Celebrate their wins. Over time, generosity returns multiplied. One small introduction today could turn into a partnership years from now. A simple offer of help could turn into an open door when you least expect it. Rule 4, keep money in motion within your community. In some neighborhoods, money arrives on payday and vanishes to big box chains or online giants within hours. In others, the same dollar circles again and again, feeding local shops, funding schools, and building stronger communities. That's not chance, it's a choice. Every time you buy locally, that money has a chance of coming back to you. Maybe not directly, but through a thriving local economy that supports your business, your job, or your children's future. Economists call it the multiplier effect. Spend at a chain and the dollar leaves. Spend in your community and it may change hands 3, 4, or even 5 times before leaving. This principle is why certain communities seem resilient even in tough times. They aren't just consumers. They're participants in a shared economic loop. You can practice this by making small shifts. Buy books from a local store. Hire services from people you know. Choose the neighborhood restaurant over the giant chain when possible. These small choices ripple outward into stability for everyone around you. We've covered conversations about money, smart careers, building networks, and circulating dollars locally. Each step builds on the other. But there's another piece of the puzzle, one that flips the way most people approach money upside down. It's the belief that investing isn't optional, it's a responsibility. Rule 5, investing isn't optional, it's an obligation. For many people, investing is treated like a luxury, something you do when there's extra money left after bills, shopping, and entertainment. But families who preserve wealth long-term flip that thinking. They treat investing as a priority, a duty that comes before lifestyle spending. There's an old teaching that money should be divided into 3 parts, one in land, one in business, and one kept on hand. The categories may look different today, stocks, real estate, and cash reserves, but the principle remains timeless. Diversify and always keep money working. Think about 2 people with the same salary. One invests only when it feels comfortable. The other sets aside a fixed percentage automatically, no matter what. Decades later, the difference isn't small. It's staggering. The second person isn't just better off, they've built a foundation that can support children and grandchildren. Investing isn't about gambling or chasing quick wins. It's about converting earned income into assets that quietly compound while you sleep. Real estate for stability. Index funds for growth. Businesses for ups. Different tools. Same goal. Build a machine that works for you long after you stop working. Start simple. Even $10 or $20 automatically invested each week builds the muscle. Over time, that muscle grows into wealth. Rule 6, not all debt is created equal. Most people see debt as a trap, and with good reason. Credit card balances, car loans, and buy now, pay later schemes drain wealth with crushing interest rates. That's destructive debt. But there's another category, productive debt. Debt that buys assets instead of liabilities. A mortgage on a rental property. A loan to expand a profitable business. When used carefully, this kind of debt can accelerate wealth instead of destroying it. Imagine two friends who each borrow the same amount. One spends it on vacations and gadgets. The other uses it to buy a property that pays for itself. A few years later, the first has only memories and bills. The second has an appreciating asset and steady income. The difference isn't the debt itself. It's what the debt is attached to. Families who think generationally avoid destructive debt like a disease. And when they do take on debt, it's with a clear plan for how it will grow wealth rather than shrink it. Before borrowing, ask one question. Will this purchase grow in value or produce income? If the answer is no, save up instead. Debt should never be used to chase comfort, only to build capacity. Rule 7. Think in generations, not months. This is the most powerful rule of all. Most people budget month to month. Some think in terms of yearly taxes, but families that stay wealthy extend their vision far beyond their own lifetime. They buy property with the next 50 years in mind, not just what looks good today. They create education funds not just for their children, but for grandchildren who haven't even been born yet. They write family missions, so wealth isn't just passed down as money, but as wisdom. The math of time is extraordinary. A modest sum invested for 75 years can multiply into millions without any additional deposits. But that only happens if no one interrupts the compounding cycle. That only happens if every generation understands the responsibility of stewardship. Wealth that isn't understood disappears. That's why conversations, education, and shared values matter as much as the dollars themselves. Money without meaning rarely survives a handoff. Generational thinking transforms you from consumer to caretaker, from someone focused on bills this month to someone building a legacy that outlives them. This is why certain families keep their wealth for centuries, while others lose it in a single lifetime. It isn't luck, it's perspective. The greatest inheritance isn't just assets, it's the knowledge of how to protect and grow them. When that knowledge is passed down, fortunes don't just survive, they multiply. The 7 rules sound simple on the surface, but simplicity doesn't mean easy. What makes these principles powerful is how they work together, compounding like interest, reinforcing one another over decades. Take the first rule again. Money isn't taboo. When children grow up with openness around money, they don't just learn arithmetic with coins and jars, they learn identity. They learn that money is not shameful and that wealth is not mysterious. By adulthood, they're already familiar with the habits most people only stumble upon in their 30s or 40s. Think about the impact of that head start. Imagine 2 young adults entering the workforce. One grew up hearing only silence or stress about money. The other grew up practicing allocation systems, hearing dinner table conversations about investments, and understanding the difference between spending, saving, and giving. By the time they both earn their first paycheck, one is already equipped to direct it. The other is likely to repeat the cycle of confusion and debt. This is why conversations matter. Knowledge passed down through words becomes wealth preserved through generations. Now look at work as a mission. The modern world often tells us to follow our passion. Passion is important, but passion without sustainability is fragile. The most resilient path is to combine meaning with leverage, to choose work that matters and that can grow beyond your own time. An example, someone passionate about art might become a freelance illustrator, trading time for income, but another person with the same passion might build a design studio, teach courses, or license their work digitally. Both follow their love of art, but one path multiplies reach, income, and impact far beyond individual effort. The difference is leverage, turning hours into assets. Networking then becomes the bridge between opportunity and action. No matter how skilled you are, doors open faster when others vouch for you. A strong network transforms years of trial and error into weeks of progress. Consider the story of a small bakery. Without connections, it struggles to grow, competing only on price. With a supportive network, the same bakery gains loyal customers, investors who believe in it, and introductions to larger distribution. The difference isn't in the bread, it's in the relationships surrounding the bread. Now think about circulating money within a community. Imagine 2 neighborhoods. In one, paychecks are spent on large chains and online platforms. The money leaves town, never to return. In the other, paychecks feed local grocers, carpenters, restaurants, and service providers. That money moves from neighbor to neighbor, funding education, reinvesting in small businesses, and creating a cycle of stability. The first neighborhood watches wealth drain away. The second builds resilience, even in hard times. That's the hidden strength of intentional spending. It doesn't just build personal wealth, it builds collective wealth. And then comes investing. When treated as optional, investing feels like a luxury. When treated as mandatory, it becomes the foundation of freedom. Every automatic transfer into an investment account is a silent declaration: my future matters more than my impulse today. The same goes for debt. The distinction between destructive and productive debt may sound obvious, but the discipline to act on it separates financial growth from financial ruin. One person swipes a credit card for vacations, the other signs a loan agreement for a rental property. Both owe money, but only one ends up wealthier. Finally, thinking in generations reframes every choice. It shifts focus from what do I want right now to what do I want my great-grandchildren to inherit. This mindset doesn't just build wealth, it builds purpose. It turns money into legacy, a story carried forward long after you're gone. All these principles share one truth: wealth isn't about sudden windfalls. It isn't about hitting the lottery, finding the next big stock, or stumbling into luck. It's about systems, habit, repeated actions, often small, that stack up into something enormous over time. You don't need to master all 7 rules overnight. Start with 1. Have a money conversation with your family, begin a side income stream, open an investment account, and automate a contribution, even if it's small. Choose one destructive debt to eliminate. Each small action begins a chain reaction. Generational wealth isn't mysterious. It's built brick by brick with choices like these.